good morning to all the attendees. Welcome to this wonderful session on inclusive communications and branding at the RISE Job Fair and Festival. Inclusive communications and branding has been a very big way in which cultural mores are forwarded, in which we have seen some wonderful commercials from many different organizations. These talk about not just LGBTQ inclusion, but some very beautiful stories in whether it is about same-sex love or it is about inclusion of all different gender identities. These stories stay a long way in people's memories and change a lot of the ideas that people have about how the society is doing in inclusion. With that starting, and which is why we are having this session in which we can probably peer into the minds behind these wonderful communications and also the hearts behind these wonderful communications. I am Anubhuti Banerjee. I am analyst at Tata Steel for marketing and sales, and I also founded and lead the LGBTQ inclusion effort at Tata Steel and an employee resource group which is called 𝘗𝘬𝘰𝘥. Along with me, I have two wonderful panelists. Let me first introduce the first panelist, who is Sneha Arora. She is Vice President of Human Resources at Myntra, and she was the mind behind some wonderful content that was created by Myntra and a lot of inclusive communications that have come from them. Sneha, if you could just introduce yourself in a couple of lines.
Thanks, Anubhuti, for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Sneha. I'm currently at Myntra. Quickly sharing about my role. I partner here with the leadership team in creating a people-first culture. My journey with inclusion actually started at my previous organization, where we were debating at some point of time that let's look into this LGBTQ plus inclusion. This is an area where we need to do more, and it's been a journey of learning for me as well, of exploring. There were, as I started to understand and go deeper into the topic, there were many conversations with allies, with many employees as well, and with people outside, which made me realize the challenges around inclusion, the challenges around, especially in this space, right? So it's the topic which is very close to my heart. There have been some very good learnings for me in terms of really understanding the topic here. So very happy to see more efforts. I'm very happy to see how far RISE has come as well over the past couple of years as well. And I think it's an honor to be able to make any kind of impact that I can in this space. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Sneha. Such a wonderful introduction, and thanks so much for being part of it and agreeing to be part of it. Next, we move to Shiva. Shiva is Vice President of Tea and Foods at Hindustan Unilever, and they were part of some wonderful communications along with partnering with the 𝘗𝘀 brand and many other communications which have come in the recent years. Shiva, a little bit of introduction about it.
Sure. Thanks, Anubhuti. I'm Shiva, and as part of my job, I have the good fortune, in fact, the privilege of working on this wonderful brand called Brooke Bond Red Label, whose stated purpose, mission is to make India more inclusive. As part of this journey, we've had the opportunity to create some work and comms around inclusion of various groups, including the LGBT community. And it's been a wonderful opportunity. It's been a great learning experience. And I'm happy to be here, part of RISE, to share that learning and that experience. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Shiva. Again, very, very glad to have you here. With that, we'll start with the session. The first idea, something that we had, is that RISE is all about inclusion. And while there are so many sessions about increasing representation within the organization, so many sessions about creating inclusive communications within the organization, I think a part which is very important also is organizations and corporates are able to communicate their inclusion out to the general world and make a meaningful difference and get in touch with the community as well as the society.
Blue pen रही है? I thought your mother likes orange.
Likes? Oh, she loves orange. I used to look like a damn marigold in all my childhood pictures. You know where my kajal is? I'm using yours.
Don't break it, huh?
By the way, it's 4 o'clock, huh?
कब आ रहे हैं?
Must be on the way.
अच्छा, मैं उनके लिए कॉफी बनाऊं?
Pakka South Indians da. They won't like your coffee.
तू ही बना ले.
Acha, listen. Which one?
This one.
Okay.
I'm taking a shower, right?
Appa, எங்கே இருக்கீங்க? சரி சரி. சின்னாள்ல யார் வரச்சே கால் பண்ணுங்க அப்பா. அம்மா ஓகேவா? சரி. You're wearing my kurta.
I want your mom to like me.
Amma doesn't like girls in short hair.
You only asked me to cut my hair.
I like you in short hair. What?
You sure about this?
I'm sure about us. And I don't want to hide it anymore. Appa, you reached? Seri, we'll just come down.
On that vein, I wanted to ask a few questions. India being such a diverse country and with so many facets of diversity and inclusion possible for India, we've only seen that there are only a few communications that have come in supporting the LGBTQ community, representing it in a very, very beautiful way. So my question to both panelists is, what do you think are some of the challenges that India has when it's about inclusive communications, that is not just LGBTQ communications, but in general, an inclusive campaign that supports your brand? And what are some of the opportunities that could come? Because given India has a wide wealth of opportunities of creating some wonderful connect with the audience, what are the opportunities do you have? So let me start first with Sneha. Sneha, what are your views on this?
Sure, Anubhuti. I think you mentioned it rightly, right? In Indian context, there is today a lot more effort on inclusion when it comes from organizations, right? There's a lot of conscious effort, whether it's around hiring, around policies, around practices, right? Many organizations are doing a lot. Externally, there is still a sense of caution from a branding and a communication standpoint. And I think for me, it really goes back to the country that we are a country of many sensitivities, we are a country of many divergent views, and a very, very large, diverse customer base as well, right? And there's always a risk of getting mixed reactions when you create this push for inclusive communication, right? Including many segments of the society, especially when it's about societal issues in general, right? And that's actually true for organizations internally as well. I remember a few years back when we started to talk about it, this is 5, 6 years back, there were questions, right? Why are we doing this? There were mixed reactions from employees as well, right? And whether it's external or internal, I think at the core of these reactions is also a lack of awareness at large around issues. And that's where I think where it becomes important to persist. I think externally as well, wherever organizations have created these campaigns, I mean, I can think of these handful of examples, right, where it was Fast Tracks Come Out of the Closet, or whether it was Vicks Touch of Care celebrating transgender motherhood, or Times of India's Out and Proud, and even Myntra's The Visit campaign, which I think we'll visit later. So I think there is, whenever externally organizations have tried, there has been a good reception. There have been mixed reactions as well to that, and I think at the core of it is awareness, like I mentioned earlier. And I think the more communication brands can create, it will help with that awareness and normalizing the issue. So it's the reason why brands need to persist as well, in spite of the reactions, would be my view on this one.
Thanks, Sneha. I really believe what you said correctly, that while there are risks, there have been some wonderful rewards as well for creating inclusive communications.
ये किन्नर भी ना परेशान करने आ जाते हैं।
अरे नहीं माँ जी, कुछ लेने नहीं देने आई हूँ। बगल में मेरी चाय की दुकान है और बारिश में सब अटके हुए थे, तो सोची सबको एक एक कप चाय पिला दूं। लीजिए लीजिए ना,
लाओ
आप भी लीजिए। आती हो?
अरे सुनो,
हाँ,
जरा इधर आओ।
अरे नहीं माँ जी, आज पैसे नहीं लूंगी।
पैसे कौन दे रहा है? सदा सुखी रहो। ब्रुक बॉन्ड रेड लेबर, स्वाद अपनेपन का।
Moving to Shiva on this topic. Shiva, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Anubhuti. I think I love the distinction that you drew right at the beginning on internal versus external communication. I think that distinction is really important. And one of the big reasons why it's important is sheer scale, right? The biggest of the largest organization will have a few thousand employees, which is really the scope or the ambit of internal communication. But the moment you go external, especially on mass media, you are just multiplying the scale of your initiative and therefore even the impact, right? So a typical commercial of a brand like Brooke Bond in a category like tea would reach tens of millions of people every week, right? So that's the sort of scale that you're talking about. And I think that distinction is very important between the impact that external communication can have. So the way I see it, internal communication is more a plan or a resolve. But I think going external is what translates it into action and leads to impact at scale.
Agree completely, Shiva. Impact at scale is definitely the need of the hour. You can say that it is. We often talk about, we have to create a culture of inclusion. How about creating it right from the outside? So I completely.
It's an interesting one. I think, Anubhuti, Shiva, what you bridged in terms of internal and external, and I think in some ways they are interconnected as well, right? Because the moment internally people start to see that you're very consistent with what you're saying outside, and likewise, right, when externally people start to see that internally as well, you're very consistent with what you're doing. I think that's the one which is a bridge and which builds a lot of trust internally as well when your people see you stand behind the causes that you're talking about internally. So I think the distinction is important, but both are connected as well. There's a bridge as well between the two.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, totally agree, Sneha, because till you have this culture of inclusion, you won't be able to create stuff that you can share with the outside world. So yeah, one breeds the other for sure.
Wonderful, and wonderful to see such a good conversation as well about this topic. Coming to the next part, in which let us look at some of the specific commercials that have been put up, specific examples that we can put up here. Coming first to you, Sneha, Myntra had this wonderful communication in which there was this commercial in which a lesbian couple are very anxiously as well as assuredly trying to look forward to the visit of one of their parents. What it really resonated with me is that identifying as a lesbian woman, I could identify with a lot of aspects of it, and how beautifully it brought family together as well. So kudos to that wonderful effort. Sneha, if you could just give us an idea of what went behind making this wonderful commercial. What were the ideas that were initially thought of? How did this come over? So Sneha, what were the challenges? What were the risks and the rewards that came through with this? And how has the journey been?
Sure, Anubhuti. I think this was an interesting one. I think if I look at the outcome of it, I think it already has about more than 4 million views on YouTube, and we did get a lot of headlines at that point of time where it was a storyline. It's probably safe to say it was one of the first ones that attempted to normalize sexual preferences as well. And I think the thought behind this was it was looking at it without judgment, right? I mean, it's anytime I look at it, it makes me smile, right? This is very simple. It's just a beautiful portrayal of love, which can happen between any two people, and how the need to accept, respect, and just celebrate that love. So I think that the thought and the idea behind it was very, very simple. And I think when I look at it, I feel very proud to be able to put this out there at the time where there was not a lot of conversation, right? And we discussed earlier that there's a bit of caution going externally with these kind of topics. So that was really the thought, that how can you portray something which is natural, which is simple, in a very simple and natural way, right? I mean, something which needs to be accepted, which needs to be celebrated as well. So that's where we started this, and I think as we have gone along, we've also continued our journey, right? I think, in fact, what we've realized is that it's not only advertisements, right? There are many ways in which you can take a stand even in your external communications. So, for example, we have a few of our models and influencers in our external communications who continue to be from the LGBT plus community. And that's one of our ways in which you can show support, and that message translates very well internally as well, because our people are able to resonate and connect with that too. So that's been the thought process behind it. And I'll also be upfront that we do get sometimes mixed sentiments in our social media comments. And I think that's another opportunity, right? The way you respond to those comments is also a way to show support and that we stand behind it. And that, I think, is the best way to build trust externally as well as internally. So yeah.
Wonderful, and such a wonderful response that it has got. It's heartening to see, and also, as you mentioned, that there is this opportunity of improvement to that society. It is through dialogue. It is through it is through comments like which are questioning, which really help society to grow as well. So wonderful work from Sneha and the whole Myntra team. Coming to you, Shiva. Shiva has been involved with a set of communications with the help of the Six Pack band. The Six Pack band is a band consisting exclusively of transgender members, and there were some very wonderful communications which got the representation of trans people absolutely right, and also took it in a vein that made it acceptable and enjoyable for a lot of people. So that really resonated with me as well. Shiva, what took you to get into this kind of a little bit of a difficult zone, especially when we talk about our society, this kind of a difficult zone of how trans people are represented in society? What made you take up this topic, and what are the challenges that you face? Because I'm pretty sure there might have been challenges when you were going through, when you were thinking about it. And what has been the reward? I mean, it has gone viral. There's been a lot of wonderful comments and wonderful reactions to it. So yeah, tell us about the journey. Tell us about a sneak peek of the journey.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. But before that, I want to commend Sneha, and I didn't realize that you guys are taking your work beyond just a piece of advertising, having your models, responding to the comments. So I love the fact that you guys are looking at it as holistically as you are, and not just as a piece of advertising. So great, good to know that. Coming to the six-pack ban specifically, look, I mean, to be really honest, we didn't start with the intention of including the LGBT community. That was not the starting point, to be perfectly honest. The starting point is about making India more inclusive, and we are always looking for ways to do that. And brands do it in many ways, and one of the ways in which we could do it is through what we call sponsorships. So we could sponsor what is known as branded content, which will serve the purpose of making India more inclusive. So this was pitched to us as branded content that we could sponsor. And it was certainly an idea that no one could have thought about. It took the folks at 𝘍𝘪𝘍 and Myntra to come up with an idea like this, and it took me and all of us at HUL a while to get used to. But once we warmed up to the idea, we really started loving it, and we really started enjoying it. It was about a 6 to 8 month journey where we created about half a dozen music videos, and each of them had their own little quirk or their own little message or their own energy. We got collaboration from the who's who of the movie industry, and it just kept growing from strength to strength. And the best part about it, of course, was the overwhelmingly positive response that we got from pretty much everyone. In fact, I don't remember a single, even remotely negative response to it. So, that, if I think about it, was very, very heartening. Internally, externally, nationally, internationally, everywhere we just got a lot of love, and we just got a lot of encouragement and a lot of support. So that was very, very gratifying. And, you probably know that this initiative went all the way to Cannes and was recognized with the Grand Prix. And our bandmates got to perform at Cannes in one of the following years. So it's been quite transformative in that sense, and it's been magical in many ways because of the things that it's managed to achieve at so many levels. At a personal level, for me, it has made me a lot more sensitive to the community and probably a lot more comfortable with the community. So I think it's been really, really fantastic, quite phenomenal.
Thanks so much, Shiva. Such a wonderful journey that it has gone on, and so wonderful to see that such communications were created with an idea of a very holistic inclusion, not singling out, say, LGBTQ inclusion in gen, but a whole holistic communication. And that is, I think, the essence of inclusion that we have in India as well, is that inclusion should be at all levels. Coming to the next question that I had for both of the panelists is which we also kind of touched upon, Sneha kind of touched upon earlier, in which while the external communications were created with the idea of the brand in mind, how much do you think that the internal environment also influence these decisions, and also how the external communication in a way was able to influence the internal environment, as in how much of having a diverse workforce at your organizations did they contribute to how these decisions were taken, why these decisions were taken, and what do you think that if we can have more representation of all kinds of diverse groups, including, of course, especially LGBTQ people in decision-making places, how do you think that that would influence more such communication going forward? So I come first to Sneha again. Sneha, could you?
Sure, Anubhuti. I think for me, I mean, let me share that experience, right? I think a lot of times you can't live anybody else's experience, right? I mean, we can understand it from outside. We can, understand what they are going through, but it's at an understanding level. You cannot live somebody else's story, right? Or you can't live somebody else's experience. You can't feel how they feel, and that's been one of my learnings as well. I'll maybe share a small example, right? When we started talking about it, right? One of the people in the organization, they came out to me, right? And then, as the conversation progressed, it was just simple things like, when people ask you, what did you do on the weekend? They had to think, right? I've never thought about, before answering that question, what did I do on the weekend? Because they may be out with their partner and they're not comfortable sharing it with their colleagues. So the kind of stress, the kind of dilemma in every conversation, the kind of, what that person goes through every day, right? You cannot live that on their behalf. So I think it's, the lesson here was that, if you have to truly understand this, you need to have people in the journey whose experiences that they can represent, and you can learn from them, right? When we started, we didn't know anything about the topic when we started these conversations internally. So absolutely important to have that representation so that the true voice, the true experience can come to the table, right? While, there are voices which the larger ally base, which can then shape the conversation, which can take it to the next level. But absolutely, in terms of what somebody experiences, if you really have to put the story out there, or if you have to really connect with somebody out there who might be having the exact same experiences, this voice needs to be heard, this voice needs to be upfront. And what we also realized, for example, when we started this entire effort at Myntra, almost a year back, we started talking about, initiatives, policies, communication, and all of that. We were pretty overwhelmed. We did not, realize that, the response we got was phenomenal in terms of the way people came forward, the way we started having these conversations. It's one of the fastest ERGs that we've been able to set up in terms of an ally group. People just came together, right? And then there was more that this group came up with to say, this makes sense and this doesn't make sense. And so I think to get to the heart of the matter, to be able to do things which are truly meaningful, which are truly impactful, it's important to get that voice on the table. And once that comes through, chances are that whatever we are doing will be more impactful. So that's been my experience and my learning of working on inclusion over the past couple of years. I hope this is what you were looking for.
Yes, such a wonderful idea, and you really touched upon how it was an inception from the idea that there were LGBTQ people in the organization, and that was the germ of the idea, and how it impacted the inclusive communication in a way very largely. What about the people who were probably not on board initially? How did the perspective change once this came out?
I think it's about, at the heart of it is awareness, Anubhuti. So when we started this conversation, people had questions where they've not had any forum to ask those questions. So I remember, in fact, somebody from Pride Circle, Ram from Pride Circle, helped us in some of those initial conversations. We got people from outside, we started having a dialogue. And the kind of questions we got, we created those spaces where people could talk about it, right? For example, is this natural? Is this something? I mean, there were many basic questions that people came up with. But, once you started talking about it, once people started to understand it a little bit better, we felt that there was a little bit more openness, there was curiosity to understand. But that initial wall to say that, look, we don't know what is this, why are we doing? So that reduced a little bit. But yeah, I mean, having said that, I think there is always going to be a wide spectrum of people that you will have within the organization and outside the organization as well. There are people who will understand, who will be with you. There are people who maybe don't understand it will take that effort, will take that step forward, attempt to understand, and then there will be there who are maybe farther out in the circle. So I think awareness is really what can make a difference in this one, and we saw that difference as well as we started to talk about it, as we created those spaces where people felt free to ask questions, and we got an opportunity to clarify, right? Because not everybody really understands the topic as well, given our Indian culture and context around this as well.
Wonderful, wonderful to hear from you, Sneha. Shiva, you said that the idea, it came from you did not think of it right from the start of LGBTQ inclusion, but how did it change? How did it happen? That how was the reaction, the wonderful reaction that video and that commercial got, as well as the other communications that HUL has put out very recently? How did those impact the inclusion within the organization? Did it start a movement? Was there a movement already there which it strengthened? Were there detractors who were discouraged by it? What about it?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps the greatest endorsement of what something like the six-pack band might have done internally is that it inspired a lot more such work. In fact, within 𝘓𝘀 itself, the current commercial on air, and I hope you guys have seen it, it's about this transgendered person at a traffic signal, who offers a cup of tea to a person stuck in the rain. So that's been a very acclaimed piece of advertising. In fact, it was recognized in Unilever as one of the best pieces of advertising made in Unilever, right? So this kind of endorsement shows, I think, how ready and how open we are internally to embrace this kind of work and this kind of comms. It's actively encouraged. It's on air as we speak. We have work on other brands like Close Up, which have also done work on same-sex love, etc. So it's quite it's more than welcome, I would say, internally in Unilever now. And since diversity and inclusion is such a priority for us, I totally agree with what Sneha spoke about in terms of the lived experience. We recognize that it's very important to talk about the lived experience, to be sensitive to it, to understand it, and in many ways celebrate it, so that you foster the inclusion more. And internal actions, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's policy, whether it's allyship, we believe that we are on the journey. Of course, long way to go, and milestones like lighting up our office in pride colors that we did are things like we're really proud about, and I think these are our way of letting the world know how much HUL and Unilever value diversity and inclusion.
Right, completely agree. Were there any challenges to it, or did it just come about quite smoothly, the inclusion effort?
I think on specifically this piece of work on comms, there was almost no challenge or resistance. But I think overall, challenges that everyone probably faces, the industry, all organizations face, is I don't think that any organization today, probably anywhere in the world, is completely conducive for people to probably come out with their with their orientations, or be like a perfectly in that sense conducive place. But sending the right signals, facilitating it, like I said, with policy, infrastructure and allyship, will hopefully get us there. And maybe as an industry, and indeed as society, we should move to a place where it becomes a perfectly comfortable thing.
Thanks. That is so insightful, and it really touches upon the next part, the next question that I had for both of you, is that there must be so many other organizations, so many other companies who want to put out inclusive communications. who want to put out commercials that resonate with communities, that resonate with all the diverse sections that our society have. And what do you think, what would be your, say, a small suggestion which would put them on track, which would really tell them that, the rewards are bigger than the risks, or how to navigate this kind of a new territory that we have, because there have been very rare occasions. So Shiva, I'd probably start with you since you were speaking about it. So what do you think about it?
Sure. I think the first step is probably being conscious about our unconscious biases. I think we all have unconscious biases, and becoming conscious about them is probably the first step towards inclusion. Many of us at HUL are going through a pretty intense program on becoming more inclusive leaders. I've had the opportunity to be part of that as well. And one of the big takeouts from that has been recognizing our unconscious biases, because only when you recognize those unconscious biases can you do something about it. And that might probably be the first step towards becoming more inclusive leaders or organizations.
Thank you so much, Shiva. Sneha, some words from you on that.
Anubhuti, for me, I think a couple of things, right? One, do it with empathy and genuineness, right? I think this needs to be the first approach. It will help connect, it will help get the message across. So it's do it with the right intent, empathy, genuineness. I think second one, which has been a learning, try not to pretend to know everything, involve people in the journey, and really you can't live somebody else's experience. And I think the third one for me would be stay strong and persevere. You need to be consistent, message needs to be out there, and you need to stand behind it. And the more consistently everything speaks, internal, external, your policies, infrastructure, the messages, what you're communicating, leaders standing behind it. So the more consistently this can happen, and the more you can stay strong and persevere with it, I think that's the piece which will help. So empathy, genuineness, don't try to pretend you know everything. And the third one would be that, stay strong and persevere. Those would be the three things that, in my opinion, would help.
Wonderful. I think that is something that we can all take into all aspects of our lives, and especially when we are talking about inclusion, is empathy, genuineness, and perseverance. All of which only are the ones which make change in the society. So, as a last, wrapping up, it has been a wonderful session with two change makers who have made really big strides about inclusion, made the society, whether they knew it or not, made the society really stand up and appreciate their brands, their ideas, the efforts that they have put in, and made their organizations being seen as very, very inclusive. And a special mention is that being Indian organizations, that has been especially even more appreciated. So thanks a lot for this part, for being part of this. We hope this is a wonderful addition to the RISE lineup of wonderful speakers. So now thanking you all and hoping you will have a very good day. Anubhuti Banerjee, thank you.
Thanks, Anubhuti.
Thanks very much.